Hello, and welcome back to another Doujinshi reading from White Album 2. We are continuing on with part 3 here. Setsuna and the Jazz Club is my own alternative title for this fanfiction. Or this light novel, I guess I should give it proper respect, because it is very, very well written. It hasn't had any big action yet. Ushinekos tend to be a little more chill in that sense. Setsuna's finally revealed her true self because, well, she got really angry and they got a bunch of beer dumped on her head. And now the pianist, the classic music pianist, and the bartender are discussing, well, what could possibly be up with that customer who they finally learned her name, Setsuna. So, continuing on from here. What I can say is she's had that dark look in her eyes for the whole past year since she first walked in here. That's a pretty long time, huh? Yeah. A gorgeous thing like her probably has guys lining up to ask her out at Hojo. Dressed like that? You really don't have any eye for women, clearly. She pulled a Marlboro menthol out of her bag and lit it. It gave off the faint scent of mint. You think she dresses like that at school? Doesn't she? I think she dresses herself nice and cute for the guy she likes, so he'll keep the impression he has of her. Women are scary. Really? You ought to give Billie Holiday's whole body of work another listen. Learn a thing or two about women. She might be right. What had I been listening to exactly in all of these incredible singers? It was time for me to start paying closer attention. This is funny coming from a married guy, though. Like, oh, you have to learn about women. It was now halfway through February 2010. The woman calling herself Setsuna showed up for the first time in ages. She sat silently, elbows on the counter, drinking her red wine. The hour was a bit late for her. She was the only customer present. As usual, she was dressed plainly, looking pale and sallow. Shallow? Is sallow a word? So, this was meant to be a disguise. But today, her mood was more relentlessly dark than before, and it worried me. Something in her felt more defeated than before. Like there was a massive abyss spreading out before her, like she might fall and be engulfed in darkness. That was what I saw in her eyes. Exhaustion, too, in the corners. She appeared to have lost some weight. Dang, Setsuna's got it rough. Again, reading over the glossed version in the game that was like, oh yeah, Setsuna was really depressed and sad. That's one thing. But reading it here like this so directly, gut-wrenching. But being as I was, with no idea how to talk to this woman who was younger than my own daughter. Ooh, he has a daughter. We're unlocking more bartender lore. I didn't pry. Just let her be. Come to think of it, when my daughter was in high school and college, I never bothered asking her about herself. Oh, that's not nice. Don't be a bad dad. Dude, that sucks. That's like a big personality flaw. Even though she did so much for the house by her own initiative, even though she must have felt so much loneliness and pain over what happened with her mother, things were tense between us. Maybe I was scared of involving myself with her. After she graduated from college, she had left home to live on her own. Even now, we weren't exactly close. Dang, this novel's making me really not like, but enjoy this person's character. I think it's really crappy to keep your own daughter at arm's length just because, oh, she's a girl, I can't understand her. I hate that. But he is an interesting character. With these pointless thoughts going through my head, I finally had the notion of looking for the day's final record. Then I heard her say, Barkeep? I realized she'd had 3 glasses. Her pace seemed to be a little elevated today. Ready for the check? Setsuna shook her head. Could I get 1 more glass? All right. You okay, though? What do you mean? I mean, maybe you shouldn't force yourself to keep drinking. Ooh, that's a precarious statement to make as a bartender. If someone's wasted, yeah, you gotta say it. But if they're not, it could be really offensive. I had never said anything like this to another customer, apart from the drunks. Why would you say that? Setsuna raised her face. The eyes gazing at me were darker than ever. Well, I mean, there was an irrational coldness to them. You've never drunk more than 4 glasses here. I'm just worried you might get drunk. Worried? Something felt off. I never felt her voice sound like this before. You're worried about me? Setsuna's voice had a self-deriding laugh mixed in. I don't want anyone worrying about me. Her eyes were open, but they weren't looking at anything. Ugh, it's so freaky. Oh, I hate this, and I love it. You're a minor, aren't you? So really, I shouldn't have been giving her alcohol. I turned 20 recently, and what's so wrong with doing what I want to do? There was something wrong with her saying such childish things, for one. I'd rather be at home, you know? You think I want to be out and around? She was definitely drunk. Then what are you doing here? Because if I stay at home all the time, Mom will get suspicious. Mom? So she lived with her parents. Oh God, the truth is coming out. She'll figure out that he and I broke up. No, that we've been broken up for a while now. She'll worry about me. She might think badly of Haruki-kun, so I have to go out sometimes, on days when I don't have school. But other than the movie theater, I don't have anywhere to go. What about a friend's place? My friends would worry about me too. I don't want them to see me like this. Is it a love you can't let go of? At a school like yours, there must be other nice guys, right? Anyone in your seminar? What? This is the thing about Setsuna. This is my biggest peeve with Setsuna. Barkeep is absolutely right. Dude, there are billions of people in the world. Why do you have to settle for milk toast Haruki? I don't think I used that expression correctly. I don't think it's actually milk toast. Plain Jane, boring. You could find 1,000 Harukis in the world. Barkeep is right. You just need to kind of move on. Setsuna set her hands on the counter and fixed me with a furious glare. I had never seen her look like this before, brimming with hostility. A guy in my seminar? Ugh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I don't want any man trying to talk to me. I don't want to talk to any man other than Haruki-kun. I sure as hell don't want anyone asking me out. I don't want anyone touching me. I can't take this. I see. You look like you're older than my father, which puts me at ease. That's why I come here. I knew that much. Oh, how old is, I wish I knew how old Barkeep is. Because it's probably kind of like a punch, like, ugh. Like she's right. But then again, to be reminded how old you are. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It was an honest apology. There was nothing hidden in it. I'm really sorry. Setsuna's cynical, self-torturing smile relaxed slightly. She dropped her eyes to the counter, hugging her own shoulders. I'm sorry. Hey, no, you don't have to apologize. That was my bad. No. Silence filled the space between us for a short while. Before I knew it, the record had ended. With no mechanism to lift the needle automatically, the old record player continued tracing the inner groove. Pop, 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 pop. I never liked that sound. So awkward. Setsuna's been letting this fester in her heart, though. She has no outlet. She doesn't sing anymore, right? Singing could be a healthy emotional outlet for her. She doesn't sing anymore. She can't tell her friends her truth. She doesn't tell her family her truth. She's keeping it all bottled inside, which, by the way, is a horrid idea. And now finally, not even fully, but a little bit of the dam just burst. To almost a stranger, to the barkeep of this jazz cafe. Thank God, because it let Setsuna get a little bit of her feelings out. But even then, it's not enough. The needle still perched on the innermost part of the record. The unvoiced feelings traced over and over. An uneasiness that could not escape. Someone, notice me. Let me out. Let me sing something else, the needle seemed to be saying. Why are you spinning emptily above me? I have nothing more to say to you. Leave me already, the record seemed to be saying. Setsuna and Haruki. The needle tracing, the record traced. Once the music ended, once the springtime of your youth passed, all that remained was to run back over those recollections, whittling each other down, hollowing each other out a little more each time. And before you knew it, it would all be full of static. Wow, what a depressing way to view life in that sense. Holy crap. Life does not end once your youth has ended. Life is only beginning. It is a new chapter. It is not full of static. I lifted the exhausted needle. The only sound to be heard was that of the air conditioning. No. Through the soundproofed cafe, a quiet lamentation resounded. Setsuna's stifled feelings. You can't give up on the guy? Sorry. It's impossible. Setsuna spoke in the voice of bright despair that clung to her. I tried. It didn't work. Why does it have to be him? Why do I love him? I've never thought about what that meant. I never made any special effort to keep thinking of him. It's just hindsight. That's all it is now. I can't forget about him and keep living. I can't forget about her and keep living. Her? A life without them? Having lost both of them? It's not possible. That's all. But I do really appreciate the fact that Setsuna is still thinking of Kazusa, not in a sense that Kazusa is her rival, but in a sense that she lost her best friend, you know? Maybe she was stuck hopelessly between the guy she liked and a friend of hers. It would be easier if I could just hate him. Ever since this past winter, I've been counting the things I hate about him. But I couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. The way I am hurting him, hurting Haruki-kun, he changed his academic department for his 3rd year to get away from that suffering. He left me alone. I'm all alone now. I've lost the position where I could worry about him, the position when he could worry about me. All we are now is a pair of old acquaintances. We dated for a little while, once. That's our relationship. And that love was just going in circles, putting up fronts, never saying what I really felt, fearing to be hurt, never really facing him. I played games, and I lost it. I baited him with the dream of a warm, happy family, brought him into my world, tried to give him all I could, and I hurt him instead. Man, it sucks. It sucks. For me, at this point in the story, I'm just like, if I were Setsuna's friend, I would be shaking her, like physically shaking her, like, give up on this guy and move on. Oh my God. Do something drastic. Leave the country. Go on a vacation and meet some, like, sexy foreign man with a nice accent and just forget about Haruki for 2 seconds and realize that the world exists without him. I hate just the dragged on Setsuna being sad. It sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. It sucks. And I feel bad for her. But come on. Setsuna put both hands to her forehead. I could practically hear her shoulders shaking. This girl, who was younger than my daughter. This girl who continued blaming herself over the man she loved. I had no words for her. There was nothing I could do. All I could give her were records. Leaving the woman weeping silently at the counter, I picked a record out. What should I put on? Something bright to cheer her up? No. Setsuna would find no joy in a song like that. If it didn't hurt her, if it didn't bring everything else down with her, she wouldn't accept it. That was the kind of woman she was. And unfortunately, this is very spot on for all of them. Setsuna, Haruki, Kazusa, they just want to drag themselves down. They always want to make themselves sad. Haruki, Kazusa going back to that hot spring inn, the same one they went to that time, making themselves sad. Setsuna refusing to move on, refusing to hang out with friends, refusing to be happy even because she feels bad for Haruki, making herself sad. Haruki finally learning to smile around people other than Setsuna, but then thinking of Setsuna and making himself sad, stupid. Just let yourself be happy. Barely 20 and so enthralled with an excruciating love. While I sympathized with her, I also envied her a little, honestly, for feeling something with such burning passion. And so, it's almost closing time. I'll play one more side of a record, and then you need to go home. And I'll give you half a glass of wine on the house. Thank you, barkeep. Then I set the record on the player, started it turning, and lowered the needle. Yesterday's. With that pronunciation, the singer must be Japanese. Nicely done. Her name is Kimiko Kasai. She's amazing, though. Side B of One for Lady, an album Kimiko Kasai recorded in 1971 with Mal Waldron, the pianist who accompanied Billie Holiday in her final years. A collection of Billie's favorite songs. And the ultimate torch song record. Yesterday's, Lover Man, You're My Thrill, and the final track, Left Alone. Sounds perfectly fitting to make Setsuna really, really sad before she has to walk home alone. Where's the love that's made to fill my heart? Where's the one from whom I'll never part? First they hurt me, then desert me. I'm left alone, all alone. Where is the love that will fill my heart? Where is the one who will stay with me always? They hurt me and then deserted me. I'm left alone, all alone. I have no home to return to, no place I can stay. Town or city, it's just a pity. I'm left alone, all alone. They say if you seek, you'll find, but that's never happened for me. Maybe it's my fate. He passed right by me. Will I see him before I die? Then I'll open my heart. I'm left alone, all alone. You're not a very nice person, barkeep. Setsuna smiled sardonically. Tears were gathered at the corners of her eyes. You might be right. But the face didn't seem to be sticking to her. Yeah, I know every person's different. If I were really sad and then if someone put on a sad record, dude, I would hate it. I hate listening to sad things when I'm sad. But I know that's not the case for everyone, and clearly that's not the case for Setsuna here. You should cry when you feel like crying. That's what sad songs are for. I guess so. He may have changed departments, but he's still at the same school, right? Yes. So no one says you'll never see him again. Why don't you give up on giving up? What? 3 years ago, I lost my wife to an illness. Oh. That's so sad. Oh, God, no, I don't want to cry. I got too attached to the barkeep. This sucks. By the time we found out about her condition, it had progressed pretty far, so we didn't have many options, but I couldn't accept it. She was all I had. I had the cafe to tend and not much money, so what I could do was limited. I put a lot of the burden on my daughter. The world still feels wrong without her. But I gave up. I gave up on not being able to let go of her, because she was the best woman I ever knew. I'm gonna cry over this dumb side story that doesn't even have to do with my album, too. No. I can't even imagine. God, I can't even imagine. I laughed bitterly. All I could do was laugh. What's impossible is impossible. Yes, it's impossible, isn't it? Setsuna drained the wine that remained in her glass. Thanks, barkeep. And she took her wallet out of her purse. What's impossible is interesting in this case because he is saying, look, my wife died. I can't get her back. Like, it's impossible. It's so sad. But really, between the lines, what he's saying is, it is not impossible to get Haruki back. It is impossible for my dead wife to come back. It is possible for you to get Haruki. And that is probably one of the most inspirational things he could have said to her at this point. She opened the door and left the cafe. Through the heavy, soundproofed glass, her shoulders looked so fragile. I couldn't save Setsuna. The only one who could save her was herself. She would accept herself, her inability to give up, even through the pining, the burning, all-consuming jealousy, the blood seeping out her ugly, festered heart, waiting for the moment when she could recover. Perhaps she was that kind of woman. This is such a good story. I feel like my lungs are open and I can breathe really well and just like my heart is full of emotions and it just feels good. Man, excellent. So, The Voiceless Idol's Perch, Part 5. After that Christmas, after New Year's Eve. 2011 had begun, and January was almost through. As usual for my cafe, Tucked away in Denkia Street in West Onjuku, I was pulling in only as many customers as would allow me to maintain the place. Just barely. But even this place was full for one day a year. That was our annual New Year's session, January 28th, a Friday this year. On this day, the place was packed with regulars and longtime patrons. Setsuna-chan's going to be here today, Rikako-san said, looking over her sheet music. She was acting as host and main pianist for the musicians that would be participating today. I missed Rikako-san. I'm glad she's back again. The woman she referred to as Setsuna had been coming here since the autumn of 2 years before. Once a month, and only on Saturdays, just barely frequent enough to be called a regular. In makeup that made her look pale, clunky, thick-framed fake glasses, messy braids, worn-out, unflattering clothes. See, my initial view of braids and glasses Setsuna is so attractive. But ever since this story talked about how she puts on makeup that makes herself look sick, I'm like, oh no. A college student in disguise who had caught my attention. How do you know that? Last year, she wouldn't come even if I called her. She messaged me. I got her address the last time we saw each other here. We're text buddies now. Seriously? What was with that smug look? She doesn't reply much, though. But I begged her. I told her I was the host today, and I had to have an audience. And she said she'd come. Wow. She wants that seat, if it's open. I mean, granted she had that emotional breakdown the last time we left off seeing the two of them together. Not surprising, Setsuna is a bit reluctant to come back. A seat just beside the record player booth, from which one could see the record shelves. A seat that left only one's back visible from the floor. The least noticeable seat in the whole cafe. It was her reserved seat. Spring of the year before. The night that Setsuna expressed her feelings. Almost a year had passed since then. Later on, right after Golden Week, there was a period in which her mood seemed slightly uplifted when she came to the cafe. I assumed something good must have happened. But that period vanished in an instant. Between autumn and the end of the year in particular, she was so haggard that it hurt just to look at her. But her eyes were no longer empty. There was none of that darkness, that nothingness. There was resolution in her gaze. Yes, perhaps she had decided. And good for her, because honestly, staying in limbo for so long is really tiring for everyone involved. At least if you've made up your mind, you can make moves toward your goal. Decided that she could endure, with these feelings that never made it through, with this despair that made her feel constantly as though she were on the verge of casting herself into the abyss. That decision must have changed her. Her charm had increased, such that she could no longer hide it with that lousy disguise. A womanly appeal had arisen from inside her. I mean, Setsuna's always been gorgeous. She appeared as fleeting as a summer haze, but this was her human appeal, giving off an earthly heat that could never be cooled. It made one think that the more pain she was in, the more her allure shone through. And the guilty pleasure of thinking that way drew my heart even more. A lot of people have said this too. Even people who worked on White Album too. Even Yonezawa-san, the voice actress of Setsuna, has said this. The more hurt Setsuna is, the more beautiful she seems. And that's so depressing. The best I could do was avoid prying clumsily. That and to play torch songs. But at some point, I started thinking, she couldn't keep coming to this cafe forever. She couldn't keep drinking here all alone. I started wishing for her to be happy. And I started thinking that if it were possible, I wanted to hear her sing. That's a big wish that has more connotations than you even could imagine. So, before Setsuna gets back to the bar and we start re-seeing her as a woman, as the story is telling us, I think we'll stop off there for today. So, thank you so much for joining me on this Doujinshi reading from White Album 2, and I'll be back to finish this chapter shortly. So until then, hope you take care. See you!